Hello and welcome to the 500 workshop. Today we're going to be changing the oil on our 500F. Now our 500F here has recently had a rebuilt engine and we've been using Miller's running in oil in the engine, just taking it for a few outings and a few miles on it, and now it's time to change the oil and put in some 20W50. Going to use Miller's again. And we're going to show you how to change the oil on the vehicle. So we've already jacked up the car and got it on jack stands, and the first thing we're going to do is start the engine and warm it up just for a couple of minutes. Don't want it to get really hot, just want to get the oil a little bit warm, and that will help the oil drain out when we take the drain plug out the sump. Okay, so we're under the car here, and hopefully you can see here we have the sump, this nice big black block here, and on the exhaust side we have our sump plug, and that's what we're going to undo in order to drain the oil from the car. Before we open the sump plug, we have this oil catcher here. Now these are readily available from different places. Some people just use an old carton to catch it. One of these, so we're just going to place this under the car. Just move the camera around a little bit. Hopefully, there we go. So you can see that's kind of roughly under where the plug's going to open and the oil is going to land in our tray. I just managed to miss the undoing of the nut, but we've taken the nut off. Apologies about that. Just with a 17-inch ratchet, and the oil started to pour out. It's going into our catcher nicely here. Here's our sump plug. So just 17 on the end, and undo it. Got a little bit on my fingers. You can see that the oil hasn't been in the car that long, but it is very thin because it is running in oil. But what we're going to do is leave it for about 5-10 minutes for all that oil to stop dripping before we start thinking about putting new oil in. Okay, we've got the very final drips of oil coming out now, and here I've got the sump plug, not quite in focus, but it's in my hand. Now what you can do, especially if you've been having leaks from your sump, which I haven't, is wrap this in some plumber's PFT tape, which seems to do a good job of stopping any leaks, but I've not got that, so I'm just going to screw this directly back into the sump. Get my 17 ratchet, and we'll just do it up tight. So the sump plug is done up nice and tight, and we just wiped some excess oil off the sump with just some paper, and now we need to fill the engine up with new oil. So as I mentioned, we'll be using this. So this is Miller's oils. This is Classic Pistonese 20W50. So this here is your oil filling cap, and we're going to undo that. There we go. Sometimes it can be quite tight. This one's not too bad. So what you can do is you can take your oil. Now we've got the filler cap off. You can undo it and you can start pouring it in the engine. The problem with doing that is that we only have one air hole that the oil's coming out of, and what that tends to have the propensity to do then is glug the oil. And when it starts glugging, it tends to have an overspill on the rocker cover, and we want to try and avoid that overspill. So we're going to do something that I've not tried before, and that is I've just got a really cheap measuring jug. I think it's like 99p. The advantage of this is it won't glug. So if I decant the oil into here and then pour it in, it won't glug. The second advantage is I can measure how much oil I'm putting in, and so I've got a good idea of how much we've refilled the engine. Now I believe, I'm not exactly sure on this sump, it's about a 2.5 litre sump, I think, but we'll see. We'll fill it up and use the dipstick to measure where we are, and then we'll know how much oil we've put in it. So like most oil cans, this will have our little pull-up tabs here on the side. We'll pull up the spout and then it should just unscrew. There's also a secondary thing here to stop spillages in transit. So there we go, we can take that off. And now we're going to pour some of this just straight into our measuring jug. So I've got just over 1/2 litre in here at the moment, so we're going to pour that in. And then we're going to keep going until we've got about 2.5 litres, and then we'll see what the dipstick is telling us. That's a much easier pour. Still have to let it go down there, you don't want it to overspill, but it's much easier than either pouring directly or trying to use a funnel. And there we go. That went in really easy, so I'm really happy with that. I'll just drip somewhere. No, maybe not. Good. So yeah, another 500 ml and we'll keep going. So this is the 4th pour. I'm just going to do about 2/3 of that. And see if we're anywhere. Just going to let it settle for a minute or so and then just check our oil level and see if it's registering at all on our dipstick. We're going to pull our dipstick out. We're going to wipe it first of all because oil will be running down over it. Put it back in, pull it out immediately, and okay, so there's oil on the stick, but you won't be able to see it because it's very clear and clean, but it's just below the minimum, so we know we're getting there. So we'll continue with the rest of this, this 500 millilitres. Now we're just going to pour half of this one in. And we'll wait a couple of minutes again, and then we'll check our oil again. Okay, so we'll wait a couple of minutes. Going to check our dipstick again, take it out, we wipe it, back in, straight back out. Okay, now we've got a line, and again you probably won't be able to see it, but it's about just under the max, so probably about half a centimetre under the max. Now let's not forget that the oil is still dripping down from the filler here, so what I'm not going to do is fill up any more at this point, because that will continue to drip down for the next 20 minutes. I've still got some oil, so I can top it up a little bit, but to be honest, as long as it's between the min and the max, we're good. I tend to like running mine higher than lower, but got plenty of oil in now, and we should be able to start the car up. So if you remember, we were measuring as we were going, and it was probably more like 550 each time I poured it in, to be honest with you. But we did 4 500 millilitres, so that should be around about 2 litres, and then another half of this, so about 2.25 litres in total has gone into that, which also means that I know how much oil should be remaining in my oil can, which is good, because I know that if this is a 5 litre can, it will go again on this engine or another. What I will do actually is write on the top in a permanent kind of pen, so I know how much oil is in there. That will give me a good indication of whether I need to buy some, and if I top up, I know how much I've used. Just give it a minute or so again, and we'll just check the oil level again, just see whether it's risen at all. Okay, it's been a couple more minutes, so we'll just pull it back out, wipe it, dip it back in, check again, and yeah, it's come up even just a tiny bit further, so we've probably got about 2.53 mil left available space in there, so I think that's perfect for now. Put our dipstick back in, and before we even think about beginning to start the car up, we need to put our oil cap back on, so that should go in here. We need to make sure this is nice and tight. It should kind of click into place, and there we go, it has. So yeah, you want to make sure that's in. You also want to make sure your dipstick's right in as well. They can come out occasionally and end up spraying oil all over the car. So but that's good now, and we should be able to start the car. So now we can carefully pour the excess oil that we had back into the container. I'm definitely going to use one of these jugs again. That was so much easier than trying to pour directly out the can, and such a cheap thing as well to do. Keep as much of this oil as we can. And I'll clean this out later with probably with some brake fluid, not brake fluid, brake cleaner fluid, sorry. That'll be a mistake. And then I've just got myself a Sharpie here. I'm just going to write on the oil can 2.75 litres, and therefore I know how much it's got when I come to use it again. Now, as always, you have to hunt around for the actual cap. Here it is. So you can put that cap back on, and I can push that back down. So that's our engine oil changed. Just a reminder of the steps we went through. So we've jacked the car up, put it on axle stands. We've warmed the engine for 5 minutes or so, just to get the oil a bit looser. We then take the sump plug out with a catcher underneath, drain all the oil, leave it to drain for 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long you want. Come back, put the drain plug in, remember to do that before start filling. Remove the filler cap. We decanted the oil, you don't have to do that, but we did. and we put about 2.25 litres in the engine. Cap back on, ready to go, start it up. So one other thing just before we go, remember to dispose of your oil safely and correctly. Depends on what country you're in. I know in the UK here I tend to decant it into a just a kind of an old bottle and take that to one of our tidy tips where normally you can dispose of that safely, but it is dangerous and carcinogenic and not good for wildlife and animals, so please just don't dump your oil anywhere. That's the end of how to change oil on your Fiat 500.